right, on to item number 4. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room. Barring any objection, we will skip over introductions and move on to item number 5, which is approval of the minutes from our September 26th meeting. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it, and the motion passes. Minutes are approved. Next up, we move on to item number 6, which is RO number 67 of 2223, submitting the 2023 Business Improvement District, or BID, Statement of Purpose, dated September 20th, 2022, and the BID's 2023 operating budget. Would anybody like to comment on this one? Questions from committee members? Discussion? If not, we'll be looking to accept and file.
I move to accept and file. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are on to item number 7, which is resolution number 77 of 2223. A resolution authorizing the creation of a crisis co-response pilot program in conjunction with Sheboygan County and authorizing the expenditure of certain funds to support the program. Would anybody like to take this one? Chief?
Good afternoon. So I'm here to talk about this resolution. So the resolution is requesting authority to establish a co-responder unit with Sheboygan County. In the resolution, it talks about the funds that Sheboygan County has dedicated to the project and is asking for the council also to dedicate essentially matching funds. So that number is in there. The program would consist of two different things, really. One is 16 hours of coverage of placing people in the dispatch center to provide crisis response, so to take incoming calls that might be able to be diverted. Under the current system right now, those calls would be transferred to a regional center out of Green Bay that would try to essentially talk down and direct that person to resources. The issue that I see there is that our dispatchers in the emergency response center at the sheriff's department aren't trained to defer calls like that. They're trained to send police, fire department, and EMS workers to calls, and so that's what they're good at. And so the idea here is to embed those crisis responders in the dispatch center so that they can pay attention to what's going on and help identify what calls might be able to be taken by them, and then in turn help develop those skills in our dispatchers there. And so that what we're proposing would provide 16 hours of coverage out of the 24 hours in that center when most of those calls would come in. The other part of the program is providing social workers, again, to provide 16 hours of coverage. So again, during the busiest times of the day, those social workers would be embedded in the police department and would go out for calls for service with our officers. And then the dispatch center would identify those calls where somebody's having a mental health crisis, dealing with drug abuse or alcohol abuse issues, those kinds of things, and send the squad with that social worker in it to handle those calls. And our hope is that by having the social worker there, we're going to get a better response and hopefully get the kind of eyes on the problem that might make the connection with our social service providers to better prioritize and ensure that those connections are made and services are provided.
Thank you. Questions, comments from committee members? I guess just one point of clarification then from my end. There was a figure in the resolution a couple of times. Is that the total of contributions from the county and the city, or is both sides matching that amount?
Both sides would be committing the same amount. That amount is $539,494. That's over a 3-year period from each one, and the amount of funding that the city would be obligating each year is spelled out in the last paragraph of the resolution.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Alder Perella?
Yeah, so this is an agreement that we are going to have with the county for 3 years, correct?
It would be a pilot program for 3 years so that we can gather the data to figure out if it's actually making an impact or not, and then also provide the data if the resources that we have are sufficient or too much, or if we need more.
So if I understand correctly, you're going to hire someone else to do it, right? Or you're not going to train someone that you already have?
The county's entering into an agreement with VistaCare, who already provides some of our crisis services, and they will hire the people.
So the only thing we will do is to pay. We will just pay our part. We will, I mean, you as a department are not going to do anything else for the service itself.
We're not going to do any of the hiring, but we're going to provide office space within the police department, and they're going to ride with us, and we'll provide radios and do things like that. But we're going to give the money to the county. They're going to do all the hiring and all of that, and then they're going to have to report back whatever information the finance department needs to fulfill their grant requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this one? If not, I'll just say this sounds like something that has the potential to have a great benefit for the community. I'm certainly interested in seeing how it goes these next few years. And we will be looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Next up, we have item number 8, which is resolution number 78 of 2223, a resolution adopting certain changes to the city's medical benefit plan and dental benefit plan effective for the year 2023 coverage and establishing monthly premium equivalent rates effective for January 2023 coverage and thereafter.
Thank you. I am happy to say that our health insurance fund is doing very well financially, so we are proposing that there is no change to any premiums for 2023. I will say that the only change that's in the resolution at all is the wellness program is being brought back, so the city has required that full-time employees receive a physical wellness or physical exam in order to receive the 8.75% rate. If they do not participate, they would be paying 15% of the total premium cost.
Questions or comments? I will submit my own again then. With everything else seeming to get more expensive, it is nice to see that staying flat. With that, we'll be looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. With that, we are on to item number 9, General Ordinance number 11 of 2223, an ordinance amending Section 82-1 of the Sheboygan Municipal Code so as to provide for a minimum wage of $15 per hour for all City of Sheboygan employees whose compensation is under the authority of the Common Council and set by the city's employee classification and compensation program.
All right, this was an ordinance that was requested by a number of alders, and in essence, what I've done, just to sort of explain how it will work, is went to Chapter 82. Chapter 82 is where most of our employee benefits and personnel policies and rules are. And in Chapter 82, Section 1, that is where we actually adopt and maintain the employee salary and benefit program. So it seemed to make sense to actually then have that include the minimum wage of $15 per hour. And so by placing that in there, basically there's a couple of different changes that are occurring. One is to add a subsection C, which basically says, notwithstanding the terms of any program, no employee of the city, except those that are excluded under Section 8223, would be paid less than $15 an hour. And then that would, we're also then repealing an ordinance that you passed establishing the salaries of crossing guards. The reason you're repealing that is because that set a separate salary that was not part of the salary program. Now that you have a minimum wage, if you pass this, it doesn't make sense to have that separate ordinance. And so that makes sure that the crossing guards also are impacted by this. So I'll certainly answer any questions that you may have about the program or about the ordinance.
Questions, comments on this one? I had a couple. I talked to Alder Flicky-Paneski before. This, the way that it is written, will apply to part-time and seasonal as well, correct? As long as they conform to
Yes,
what's in front of us? Okay.
right.
If there's no discussion, I suppose I'll monopolize briefly. I won't be supporting this this evening. I completely understand the idea behind it. I do think that it is a valid pursuit. My concern is the entire reason that we decided to enter into that compensation study in the first place was that what we had was, if you applied the word program to it, it was very charitably. And I feel like the way that it got like that was years of making small changes to the structure that didn't really follow any consistent guiding philosophy. So I guess to me, when we passed the results of the compensation study, it was more than just that chart that was put together. It was really the accepting of the methodology behind it. That being the guiding factor that makes sure that as we move on into the future, we are continuing to keep that same fair, consistent application of the different parts of the methodology to set all the salaries so that we are making sure that they are not, again, somewhat moving from each other in a capricious manner. I do see there are 5 names on it, so I guess I'm mostly just having to say my piece here. And with that, I will move on to ask for a motion to approve or any other discussion.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on this one? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes nay. Motion passes. The ordinance is approved. Next up, we have item number 10, which is RO number 38 of 2223, submitting a claim from James A. Zietz for alleged damage to his vehicle when it was struck by a City of Sheboygan garbage truck while parked.
This is here in front of you merely for filing, but just to report as to what happened in this case. This was a claim that was paid. There were 2 estimates. He had originally asked for the higher of the 2 estimates. We paid him the lower of the 2 estimates, but we did pay the claim.
Any discussion? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to file.
I move to file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We are on to item 11, which is RO number 13 of 2223, submitting a pending claim from Nina Staple for an alleged sewer backup in her basement.
So again, this one is in front of you for filing, but just to report as to what happened, this was a claim we denied. We do not believe we're responsible for this. For one thing, it was not on the city sewer system. It was on the town sewer system, even though she is a city resident, and there was no negligence on the part of the city. Can't speak for whether there was negligence on the part of the town.
Questions, comments? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to file.
I move to file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are on to item 12, which is RO number 69 of 2223, submitting a claim from Allstate and Matthew Friedel for alleged damages to vehicle when it was struck by a City of Sheboygan bus.
Again, we're just reporting to this, to you on this one and asking for a motion to file. This is a claim the city denied. We denied it because the claim was not properly made to the city. Shoreline Metro is a separate entity for the purpose of claims, and the claim should have gone there. And as I understand it, Shoreline Metro is dealing with this particular claim.
Questions, comments? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to file.
I move to file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are on to item 13, which is RO number 27 of 2223, submitting a claim from Jody Galloway for alleged damages to vehicle when it was struck by a falling tree branch on North 25th Street.
And again, this is just a report to you, and what we're anticipating is a motion to file. This is a claim that was denied. This was a falling tree branch during a major storm, and we denied it because we did do the investigation and determined there was no negligence on the part of the city. We were unaware of any issues with this tree, and in fact, probably there were none, other than the fact that it was in a huge windstorm. Additionally, in this case, there were no actual estimates provided for any of the damages, and so it would not have been damages that we could have paid in any case, but it is a denial.
Any discussion on this claim? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to file.
I move to file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are on to item 14, resolution number 35 of 2223, submitting a claim from Ku Vang for alleged damages to vehicle when it struck an open sewer pothole on Arizona Avenue.
And again, we're just looking for a motion to file, but to report on what happened here, we did do an investigation and determined that there was no negligence on the part of the city in how the pothole was dealt with. So because there is no negligence and it's a street issue, there really is no ability to pay it per state statute. And additionally, there were no estimates provided as to any kind of damage. So that claim was denied.
I'll remind the committee this is your last opportunity to ask interesting questions about the claim before we move on to the budget portion of tonight's meeting. Any discussion on this one? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to file.
Motion to file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
And Mr. Chair, if I may be excused, since my budget's not on this committee's agenda.
By all means, but you are welcome to stay and enjoy the fun.
Thank you.
All right, next up then, we have item number 15, which is 2023 budgets for the Common Council, Office of the City Clerk, and elections.
Good afternoon. I think I'll be brief. In your Muni Code packet, there are two documents. There's the overview and highlights from our office, and also the summary of the budget. The summary of the budget incorporates three different budgets. It's the city clerk, the elections, and the council budget. The only significant changes, which ours actually decreases in odd years because we go from 4 elections usually down to 2. So that takes away a lot of our temporary salaries from our poll workers, as well as any overtime for the clerk's office. So that's one significant change, and the other significant change I would say would be when we went down from, or when we changed from board docs to Muni Code meetings, that was a $2,000 savings per year. So that's the two changes that are in our budget.
Questions, comments? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on then to item number 16, which is the 2023 budget for the Finance Department.
Hello again. Thank you. The most significant changes in the Finance Department include the removal of the $400,000 that was previously set aside for the wage study. There was a reserve account that was placed in Finance in order to implement the compensation study. So that reserve has been reallocated in 2022, and in 2023 will be zero because we have built in those adjustments to wages right in each department's budget. Additionally, the insurance premiums increased 29%. I will point out that that's largely because in 2021, when we were budgeting for 2022, we didn't have the final numbers yet. So the actual change is about 10%, but we are making up some of that difference that was not recognized at first for 2022 budget. And lastly, we had a 4.1% increase in contracted services, and that's due to the increase in the cost for our purchasing agent. We have an employee that is 50% working at the county and 50% here. He is a county employee, so we pay the county for his benefits and salary.
Any discussion on the Finance Department budget? I said 2 hours before the meeting. We have to make it last at least that long. Thank you. Next up, we have item number 17, the budget for the Office of the City Administrator.
Thank you, Chair. As it is in your Muni code, the proposed budget for 2023 for the Office of the City Administrator's Department, the Office of the City Administrator's 2023 proposed budget reflects a 26% total decrease from the 2022 with a total levy usage of $888,524. The main driver of the decrease is the reduction in city contingency account. I guess I can ask if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'm just reading off what you have in front of you.
Any questions or comments on the Office of City Administrator budget? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to item number 18, which is the 2023 budget for the Office of Mayor.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few points reflected in the Office of the Mayor's budget. Overall, the budget reflects an overall increase of 2.6% increase from 2022. A few of those items are non-personnel related services as well as personnel services. If you look at, for example, where the increases occur related to FICA, Medicare, retirement, and health insurance increases, that is where a predominant amount of increases are. However, you do see a few, as well as salaries, for full-time to reflect the living adjustments and increase there. Some decreases we see in dental insurance, life insurance as well, while we remain projected flat for workers' comp and non-personnel related services. We remain flat for items where we can remain flat. We do see an increase in the IT service charge as well. And then we see a decrease in vehicle and parking expenses, as well as a slight decrease in some community relations items. So that's what we have for the mayor's budget. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments on the budget for the mayor's office? Okay, well, I will just submit a comment because you highlighted it. It is nice to see that IT is continuing to get support and focus. I've enjoyed seeing what they're doing. And I'm enjoying how flat most of these budgets are coming to us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Even with, again, the cost of pretty much everything going up. Thank you. Next up, we have item number 19, which is the 2023 budget for the municipal court.
Hi, thank you. So one of the main differences to our budget, which I even don't quite totally understand why it had to happen, but Caitlin, I'm sure could educate us more if need be, is that there's no longer my projected revenue listed as part of our budget. So everyone here knows that the municipal court pays for itself and contributes back to the general fund every year. Last year, we had an increase. I think it was the largest year for revenue since I've been elected. And so the total amount that was kicked back to the budget was $310,984. This year, it's expected that that would be an additional 14% added to that. And then for 2023, we're projecting to pay our expenses and then have an additional contribution of $478,293, or as stated here, a 53.8% projected increase. And there's several reasons for that, but that's based on what's happening and some things that we know will be happening next year. Then in terms of our expenses, they have just stayed relatively stable. We have a standard increase in IT expenses that we have to pay each year for the TIP software program. We have some computer needs that will be coming, but those are offset by a decrease in a service that we were previously paying for. The reason when you look at the budget, though, and you see this contracted services, it looks like there's a decrease of $278,000, and that's because that line was from previously when the revenue was part of the budget. That would show the amount that was paid out to the state or for the jail or for the Safe Ride program. And so now that revenue won't be listed as part of the budget, that won't be reflecting as an expense. So that's why there's such a difference in that line.
Thank you. Questions or comments on the municipal court budget?
I have just a question about the projected increase. What are in brief the criteria, the elements, the parameters that contribute to that increase?
So I just have had new staff in the past year. We've been able to implement some new policies, some new ways that we do collections. And we also have some change in the city attorney's office. So there's some more aggressive pursuit of outstanding judgments. So right now, I periodically will look at outstanding judgments, and not too long ago, we had something like $8 million in outstanding funds that were owed to the court. And so there's been some movement by Attorney Liz Majerus to collect on some of these, especially for building code cases. So that's making a big difference, and we understand that there's at least one major case to settle for that next year in the early part of the year. So that's why there's such the big jump. Other than that, I would say it's just a change in our collection efforts, making sure that all of our judgments that we have are docketed so that there is collection going on. I made some decisions on cases that we would pursue driver's license suspensions on, and not to do that, because that can have the reverse impact is what people might think in terms of being able to pay. So I think it's just a combination of all of the different things that have happened.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, then, we have item number 20, which is the 2023 budget for WSCS Cable.
Thank you. So for the cable television station for 2023, we will see a decrease of around 2.7% or $5,000. That is basically made up of a $20,000 increase in personnel services due to the Carlson-Detman study. And then we approximately have $12,000 decrease in our small equipments as we finish up a video editing equipment refresh, which will be done this year. And then the remaining decreases are due to us purchasing new equipment via the capital program next year. And within that, we'll be putting those new pieces of equipment under a 5-year maintenance contract. So rather than paying it through the operational budget, it'll come through the capital improvement side.
Questions or comments? If not, we will move on to item number 21, which is the 2023 budget for the Information Technology Department.
Thank you. For the Information Technology Department for 2023, we're looking at a 3% increase or around $32,000. Once again, we're looking at an increase of about $34,000 due to the Carlson-Detman study, as well as one of my employees going on to our health insurance program. Contracted services will be increasing around $77,000. That includes the addition of the debt book software for finance, as well as enhancing our cybersecurity defenses. Computer maintenance is decreasing around $31,000. We're basically just moving the computer maintenance $30,000 up into the contracted services because it is a service now versus a piece of hardware. Telephone is decreasing around $7,000. We implemented a new AT&T PRI lines this year, and we will be going from 3 circuits down to 2. That's where that savings is coming from. Tools and small equipment is decreasing around $19,000. We were on a 3-year project to upgrade all the switches throughout the city. We are completing that this year, so next year we don't need to spend the money on the switches. And then software maintenance is decreasing around $20,000, and that's primarily due to the completion of the charts of accounts conversion.
Any discussion on the information technology budget? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 22, which is 2023 budget for the Senior Services Department.
Sure. So we have a pretty significant increase in our budget for 2023 over 2022, and it's entirely in personnel services with the reactivation of one full-time position that had been vacant since 2020, and then, of course, an adjustment to the 2 other salaries in the department from the Carlson-Detman study. Actually, all 3 of these positions were ones that were, I forget the correct terminology, but below the new ranges. So a pretty significant jump for all 3 of these positions. You can see at the bottom that really our non-personnel services have gone down ever so slightly. So the entire reason for the growth is all through staffing. And really, to be fair, a lot of this is an estimate as we prepare for our first year in our new building. So in terms of utilities and other things, it's really, we're trying to take our best educated guess.
Questions or comments? Seeing no discussion, then thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is item number 23, the 2023 budget, Human Resources Department.
Hello. There are not many changes in the human resources budget. It is pretty flat. The couple things that I will point out is includes a FMLA outsourced vendor that was previously approved by council. So we will be contracting with a vendor to take on FMLA and ADA cases in order to make sure that the city is compliant moving forward. Additionally, we have the removal of the temporary salaries line, mostly because we don't have the staff to support a temporary employee. So it would not be beneficial to that employee to have come to the city at this time. Additionally, I just wanted to point out that the 2 vacant positions, because we are up to 2 in human resources as of last week, so there are 2 vacant positions are fully funded in this budget.
Questions or comments on the human resources budget? Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Before we move on, Alder Perella, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. You're a little fast. So why the FMLA and the ADA falls only on the budget of the human resources?
Thank you. So it is a contract that is being housed in human resources and fully functioning through the human resources department. Generally speaking, FMLA and ADA cases should be handled by human resources. Moving forward, we hope to have it all taken care of by human resources to support the other departments, but it is a true function of the human resources department, just like the salaries. They're split between three departments, three funds technically, but it is considered a basic function of human resources.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on human resources? Thank you. Next up, we have the 2023 budget for planning and development and a smattering of sub-budgets.
Number of budgets to go through. So the first one is the Redevelopment Authority Fund. This is primarily used for, the revenue source is actually ground lease payments and sale of property. And then there's a number of properties that the RDA, the Redevelopment Authority, maintains and contracts out those services. So it's really contracted services and landscaping. So this budget is relatively flat year over year. And is just there if the Redevelopment Authority identifies a redevelopment opportunity. The next budget is the federal grant budget, and this is the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. That is pretty much staying the same with the $22.3 million allocation. So there's really nothing in there except for projects that have been previously approved by council or will be in the future. The building inspection budget, so the building inspection and planning and development are the two entities, and primarily the increases related to that are related to the wage increases from the Carlson-Dedman. And then the non-personnel changes is a deduction in a state contract for weights and measures. So the city contracts with the state to do testing of gas pumps and scales and those kinds of things across the city. And the state notified us that they're not going to be doing as many inspections in the year, and thus our cost for service is going to decrease at about $10,000. The next budget is city development, and that budget is really the change, and that budget is related to the wage study and the changes in salaries. The affordable housing budget is probably the one that's got the biggest change, and that includes a second payment on the Gartman property that was purchased for $693,500, and then $250,000 of expense for engineering services related to the development of the Gartman farm. There is also some salaries that a portion of our staff are paid out of the Affordable Housing Fund, and you'll recall that the revenues from this come from the closed TIF districts. So the 6 TIF districts that we're closing, those funds that were extended for 1 year, the revenues collected from each of those get deposited in here so we can make investments in affordable housing. There's also $75,000 in there for what's called housing rehab loans, because we operate a facade and landscaping program and an upper floor residential rehab program to encourage people that own second floor of buildings that are underutilized to convert them into housing. The next budget is the CDBG budget, and it's a little difficult because the CDBG year runs April 1st to March 31st, and we run on the calendar budget. So we're kind of spanning two timeframes. We did get our allocation for 2023, and it's a little bit down from what we've received in the past, but the council has previously allocated those projects under a previous resolution, so this will just be budgeting and paying out with some of the funds going to public service, some going to public facilities, and then some administration. And then the last budget is the tourism budget, and this is primarily related to the revenues we collect from hotels from room taxes. We pay out 70% of those funds to the Visit Sheboygan, and then we retain the 30%, and under the 30%, some of that goes to police and fire and DPW services for events, and particularly the 4th of July and concerts and other types of events that we have costs with, as well as some programming and porta potty rentals related to energizing the city green space. So that also comes out of this budget, as well as some small staff time for city development staff. So in a nutshell, that's it. There's not a lot of major changes. Really, the changes are related to the Carlson-Dedman study and the wages.
Questions, comments on the rather large city development umbrella of budgets? If not, thank you.
Yes.
That brings us to item number 25, which is the hiring process update for the Human Resources Department.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give everybody in the council here an overview and update, we are using Baker Tilly for the recruiting portion of this. They're in the process of collecting and developing the parameters and the advertisement documentation, and that piece is moving forward very, very positively. That information will be actually used for the recruiting process for this position, which is typically done. We did the same thing for my position prior to in the past, and as well as the Department of Finance Director. We should be moving out, rolling it out. Should happen next week sometime, and then I'll be able to give an update at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we are on to item number 7, which, because we have exhausted our agenda, is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion on adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.